I'm doing great, man. For those who don't know, my wife and I, we had our second kid a little over a month ago. So just trying to
Oh,
juggle
congratulations again.
everything that goes on with that on top of everything that we're doing at IDEX. So making it work though.
It's awesome. You have any plans for the end of the week here?
Yeah, we're taking some much needed time to get away to the mountains for the weekend. So going to
Oh,
take
amazing.
the advice of crypto Twitter and go touch some grass. So looking forward to it.
That's a good call. That's a good call. All right, looks like we have Nader and Christina on. How are you guys doing?
Doing well, doing well. Alex, you better be posting some of those touching grass images on Lens. I want to see them. But yeah,
There
thanks.
we go. Yeah, love it.
Exactly. I want to see that content. I want to collect that content. Um, thanks for having me, guys. Happy to be here.
What's up? Thanks for having us. I'm in New York with Christina. We're just like in two separate rooms right now to take the space, but been hanging out with them up here today.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. All right, looks like we have a few people coming in now, so we should probably get started. Welcome everyone again to another edition of Spill the Alpha. This one is, oh, looks like connection was lost. Uh-oh. Can everyone hear me?
No alpha is being spilled then.
Yeah,
I can hear
we
you
still
still,
got you.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we're all good then. Well, let me repeat myself. Welcome to another edition of Spill the Alpha. This one's number 5. We're extremely lucky to have Lens joining us. Christina and Nader will be coming on to talk about a few different things. I'm really, really curious to see what they think about the current kind of turbulent landscape with Threads and Twitter and ultimately how Lens is positioned. But before we get into that, as always, a few updates from Alex on the IDEX front. Alex, are you ready for us?
Yeah, let's do it. Cool. Thanks everyone for joining. Especially thank you, Nader and Christina. Awesome to have you guys on. Excited to hear more about what you guys are working on, maybe a little bit about yourselves personally. So yeah, we always like to start these with just a brief update on the latest on what's going on at IDEX. As everybody knows, we're heads down, focused on bringing the new Perpetuals product live. Exciting milestone this week is we're beginning our UI reviews today. So as we've touched on our previous Spill the Alpha, previous town halls, we've been working the last few months focused on integration. So putting all the different pieces together, doing a lot of testing along the way to make sure that all the different pieces of functionality are working as expected. Up to this point, all that testing's been done via the API, but now almost everything is hooked up into the web client, the website that you're familiar with, if you're a trader via the UI. And now we're able to do these UI reviews where we step through each piece of the app and make sure that it's working as expected and pixel perfect. So still a bit left to be done, but it's just awesome to see the app working and something that you can kind of look and touch and feel before we open up the testing to the wider internal and eventually external audience. We've also been doing a lot of work with Polygon and getting the ZK EVM testnet up and running and functioning as expected to support Xchain. So for those who haven't heard, about a month ago, we announced our partnership with Polygon to use their ZK EVM technology to launch an IDEX-specific settlement network known as Xchain. The key points here is that it's going to allow us to offer gas-free trading due to the scalability benefits. So you no longer have to worry about additional costs and fees associated with order book trading, order book DEX, which is what we think is one of the key components of putting it kind of on the same level in terms of UX as centralized exchanges. So we've been doing just a lot of work with them, implementing a few required smart contract changes, and then doing a bunch of design sessions on UX. So that's really coming along well, and going to be kind of in line timing-wise with the work that we're doing on the app side. And then lastly, just a thing that we've been focused on, kind of one of the last major development arcs was this concept of recovery design. So there are different, systems that can go on and offline, different issues that can happen, and we want to think ahead. What happens if something goes wrong? We want to have a process and a protocol in place so that we can address those things ahead of time. So we've been spending a lot of time thinking through policies, procedures, and building necessary tools to make sure we don't find ourselves in a position where we're in kind of an irrecoverable state and haven't given consideration to how we would get out of that. So yeah, those are just some of the highlights of what we've been working on internally. Back to you, Victor.
Amazing. Yeah. Thanks for the quick rundown. Looks like things are still progressing along and we're getting closer and closer to that testnet launch. As a reminder, we will have a 300 spot whitelist beta. We haven't revealed the details exactly how to get on that whitelist just yet, but I highly recommend you follow IDEX on Twitter, hit the notification bell, and join Discord to get the latest updates. All right. Time for some back and forth with our friends at Lens. How are you guys doing?
We're doing great.
Amazing.
Like I said, we're having like our first, I would say, on-site here in New York for most of the U.S. people this week. So we're all hanging out here in the new office,
That's
and
sick.
it's been kind of fun. Today is my last day, though.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Well, let's make it
Yeah,
great. Let's
no,
make
for
your last
sure.
day awesome.
Yeah, heading back home tonight.
Let's party. Yeah, we've got our offsite here. It's been awesome doing a lot of thinking into what our developer ecosystem and creators need. So it's been really fun to get the gang together.
That's fantastic. So just a reminder to everyone that's listening in, if you have any questions, there is a comment button in the bottom right there. Any questions for us or Lens, if you have them, shoot them our way and we'll make sure to either get them answered on the spaces or later on we'll have Reese or Anwar come in and help you guys out with the answers. So the way I like to get things started generally is just to get a brief understanding of how you guys got into the space initially and then how you ended up working with Lens. So maybe Christina, you can take first stab at it, and then we can hear from Nader afterwards as well.
Let's do it. So I've now been with Lens Protocol and working in the space full time for nearly 2 years. I've done a bunch of random bits and pieces along the way, but before I joined Lens, I was actually working at TikTok for 2.5 years, and it was amazing because when I started there, we at least the New York office was just a WeWork, right? And it was incredibly small and nimble and really exciting. And obviously, after COVID, the company grew and I found myself a little bit bored. So I moved into this team internally that was focused on NFTs and figuring out for TikTok creators, like how can we help empower creators with this new technology? And so that was an amazing project because essentially what we were doing there is similar to what we're doing at Lens, the idea that user-generated content can be collectibles and these moments on social media that go viral actually have value. And so we launched, TikTok videos as NFTs, so kind of like some of the best TikTok moments. And they're actually live now. Not many people know about it. They're on Starknet and Immutable X.
Oh, really? That's
Yeah,
really
so
cool.
there's some alpha. If anyone's looking at getting some digital artifacts, the first TikTok NFTs, and maybe the only ones, I think, because unfortunately we got somewhat rugged towards the end of the project, and the company said, NFTs aren't a priority for us anymore. And so ultimately I said, okay, I'm out. And Stani had reached out to me and he told me that they were building decentralized social media. And at that point, we didn't have the Lens name or anything, but I got the concept. I said, this is exactly what we were trying to do at TikTok and the idea that, you can own your social profile, but also the fact that I used to get hit up a ton when I was working there, even on my Instagram account with people saying, hey, my TikTok account has been taken down. Can you help? And I thought it was funny, like literally on my Instagram, I just had, works at TikTok. And people would find me, they were that desperate. So I got the concept, even though, Stani didn't share that much more with me. So I just jumped on and went on for the ride and here we are. And so that's how I entered the space. But I'd personally been, investing in crypto since 2017. My parents are Argentinian. So I got the concept of, having financial sovereignty and anti-inflationary. Exactly. This is the fun use cases, and I think equally as important because creators are businesses. And so that's,
Right.
financial sovereignty as well. But, yeah, I got the Bitcoin concept pretty early because I'd seen everything that had gone on in Argentina during the crises, because there's been
Mm-hmm.
multiple. So yeah, that's my background.
Oh, that's an amazing story. That's really cool. All right, Nader, your turn.
Oh, sorry, I was trying to get off of mute. Yeah, I've been with Lens for almost 1 year now. October will be 1 year, but I've been in the blockchain space for about 2.5 years. I've been a developer for about 11 years, and I've been in developer education for about 8 years. And I would say kind of the focus of my career for the last 6 years or so has been developer relations, which is essentially a combination between like software engineering and education. So I've written like 2 books. I've given a lot of talks. I've run like a training consulting company. I've done DevRel at AWS for a few years, and I've kind of just worked in a lot of different areas. And after being in the blockchain space for a little over a year and a half, um, it became really apparent that there just weren't a lot of use cases that were possible beyond finance at the time until I really had kind of become settled in and understood everything happening. So like at first I was really excited about everything in Web3, but after being in Web3 for about a year, I realized that it's just extremely early. So when Lens came
Right.
around, it was like one of the first things that made sense and that I could see actually being adopted by just the average person. And I became really, really excited when I actually kind of met with the team and saw not only like what they had already done, but their vision for the future. So I decided to leave the role that I was in and kind of go all in with Lens. And it's been almost a year now, and it's been a lot of fun. And we have done quite a bit, and we have a lot more plans. And hopefully, we can kind of talk about some of that stuff today.
Yeah, no, that'd be fantastic. That's a great story as well. I've seen some of your content. I think some of the most interesting pieces I've seen is like kind of like the lo-fi code stuff that you do, where you're able to knock out pretty like in-depth apps with very very little work. And I think for me that's pretty interesting since I don't have much coding experience, and like being able to see the possibility of just a few lines of code running almost like an entire social app is really cool to see.
Yeah, we have a lot of we have a lot of SDKs, a lot of libraries, and a lot of, I would say, abstractions that try to make that just a lot
Hmm.
easier for developers to get up and running building. Based on my own experience, providing those tools and stuff just makes it like really a lower barrier to entry for people to get started with a specific software. And then once they get started using that and they become successful, it kind of motivates them to maybe continue building. So that's kind of the incentive that we think. And obviously, if you go to a hackathon and you're able to build an app in 6 hours and else is taking 6 days, and you're giving them also kind of leverage over people and prototyping and stuff like that. So there's a lot of reasons that that it's really a big focus of ours to build out those types of products and make them available.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's a really interesting value prop. All right, amazing. So before we jump into Lens, and maybe it's actually going to be a great segue into some of the things that you guys do want to discuss, I'm curious to know what you guys think is kind of going on from a perspective of the entire social landscape. For me personally, like it just feels like the last 3 to 6 months have been super turbulent with Elon coming in and sitting behind the wheel, making from my perspective, a crap ton of extremely questionable decisions. We had, Zuck launch Threads. We have Blue Sky starting to send out some invites. So I'm curious to know, your kind of broad thoughts on the landscape in general, kind of the problems that you see, and maybe any kind of insights you have.
I think one thing that I will call out that's been super interesting is seeing the biggest social founders in the history of the world both going into like decentralized social. So you saw Jack Dorsey with Blue Sky.
Right.
He left Twitter, and then he's now all in on Nostr, which is even more decentralized than Blue Sky. Then you saw the head of Instagram and the head of Threads, Adam Mosseri, give a talk last year at TED, a TED talk talking about building decentralized social. And then when Threads was launched, one of his first posts was focused around the value propositions of decentralization, owning your social graph, censorship resistance, not in those exact words. That's kind of what he was saying. So I think it's a big, I would say, motivation and also kind of like if you've been working in Web3 and you believe in a lot of these ideas, seeing the biggest, I would say, and most successful social founders in the history of the world now pivoting in this direction in some form or fashion is like very validating for what we're building. So that's just as a side note has been really interesting to see. But I think that what we're building is a lot more of a differentiator than anything else that exists, in the sense that, like, if you pick up Blue Sky, there isn't a lot of difference between if you pick up Twitter. Like, it just feels
Mhm.
almost the exact
Yeah,
same.
yeah, yeah.
And I think a lot of these social applications are making similar like types of applications. But I think what you're seeing in Lens, and something that we're kind of trying to double down on, is we have a very big, I would say, diversity of creator and creative types of people. We have artists and musicians, and we have actors, and we have sex workers, and we have developers. We have all types of people. And I think that being able to kind of see that diversity of not only people, but applications that are focused on, making it easier for those people to create has been really cool and fun to work on. But that's just my general like thoughts around the social landscape. Just seeing those big time social founders now moving in
Yeah,
this
that's really
direction
interesting.
is pretty cool to see.
So what do you think are the biggest like current pain points of the centralized social media giants?
I mean, the biggest challenges that we have are Sybil resistance, and I would say scalability. I think that we solved scalability, actually. That was one of the biggest challenges that we had, and our engineering team, led by Josh, but a bunch of other people, were involved in building something called Momoko, which is a new infrastructure layer that has been running now for a few months, and it's turned out to be, I think it was around um, 300 times less expensive and around 250 times more scalable. So typically when you have a trade-off of scalability and cost, it's actually the opposite. So typically if something is going to be like more scalable, it's not going to be like less expensive. But the infrastructure that we've kind of rolled out has been that way. So now we're kind of an order of magnitude away from a traditional database, which is extremely inexpensive, meaning that we can continue subsidizing like all the transactions happening on the network, which is kind of how Twitter works. So if you post on Twitter, you don't expect to pay for that transaction. Like, that would be crazy, right? So like, I think
Right,
a lot
right.
of traditional blockchain applications still expect users to pay for their transactions, but with social, it's just like a non-starter. But it was becoming like extremely expensive for us. But I think that since we've rolled out this new infrastructure, it's essentially solved that problem while still maintaining the properties of like Web3 social that we wanted. So we wanted to continue to have like ownership and immutability and censorship resistance and all these other things, and autonomy and portable social graph and all that stuff is still there. But now we're able to kind of actually scale to the same number of transactions per second that Twitter has hit at peak. So I think our infrastructure scales to in the range of 35 to 50,000 transactions per second. I think Twitter peak has been around 50,000 operations per second, or tweets per second, around the time that World Cup was happening. So scalability is kind of a solved problem to an extent. And then the next issue is around censorship resistance, dealing with bots. But you also see Twitter still having this problem. Like, if I post
Right,
something,
right.
I still have bots. So it's a big challenge. But we have a lot of different teams working from different angles to kind of solve that. We have people that are within our company with AI and ML experience building out different algorithms and detection mechanisms. And we also have third parties out there that are building stuff there. And I would
But why do you think
love
the
to hear.
bot problem
Yeah.
is so bad on Twitter?
I mean, it's because it's kind of like the same thing when it comes to any type of, I would say, um, action that someone can take to receive a monetary benefit out of it. Like, what's the cost versus the ratio between like cost versus benefit, maybe.
Hmm.
And if you look at how inexpensive it is, if you're a developer, you have a server running, you can write a script that would generate hundreds or thousands of profiles per second. And if you generate these profiles and you're able to post, and you post, I don't know, 1,000 times per second or something like that, and you just get one person to click on some malicious link and you make $1,000, then it costs the amount of effort is like worth it, right? So like that's the general idea, I guess, is that people are
Right,
scamming
right.
and spamming, and if they can even get one person to click on one of those links, then they've actually made money.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I think back
Has
to
like
your
the sorry, go ahead, Christina.
Oh no, I was just going to say back to your question around like, Adam Massari pretty much giving a TED talk about Lens protocol, which was the first thing that came to my mind when Nader shared that with me. But really, like these platforms realize that people aren't loyal to them. They're actually loyal to creators, right? And people using those platforms.
Right.
And my sense is everyone has realized how much a cost like renting out their 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 digital real estate to these platforms, and the risk behind that, but also the what we care about with Lens Protocol is showcasing what are the benefits that this can open up. Like we can speak all day about how these platforms are taking our data and what our data would cost, but what are the benefits that can be opened up by the blockchain by owning your social capital, and Nada obviously mentioned that we're super early in that cycle, right? Because we still need to deal with things that not only these big social platforms are dealing with as well, like bots, but we need to be dealing with like how are we maturing up the underlying infrastructure to create those experiences that can showcase to these creators that Web3 unlocks more value. And so we're kind of playing both fields. We're dealing with the same issues that they're faced with, but also our own issues in terms of kind of building out the way we see the future and our vision for Web3 social.
Awesome. Have you guys seen like an impulse increase in user acquisition during these, I would call them like social wars between some of the giants that do exist in the space?
100%. We just launched a waitlist for Lens, I think about a month ago, to really capitalize on this. We had been seeing, it's a no-brainer for us, but how do we do this in a scalable way, and how do we do this
Right.
in a way where we can weed out all the bots and onboard people into Lens safely to ensure that the user experience isn't impacted. So it's a balancing act on our side. And I wish we could have done more and that the tech was a little bit more progressed for us to really capitalize on those opportunities. But to be honest with you, this narrative around, owning your social profile and having more portability isn't going away. And these platforms are also going to have their own struggles in practicing what they preach. So no doubt there's going to be more opportunities for us to continue bringing people across just based on the media cycle and what these big companies are doing.
Yeah, no, I think there's a huge opportunity for Lens right now, and I think going into the near future. So let's talk a little bit more about like owning your handle. One of the key topics that I've seen pop up, obviously, is tweets from people that owned handles like music on Twitter, as well as a few other ones receiving a nice what I would consider like a equivalent of a liquidation email from Elon telling them that their handle has been apprehended. What are your kind of like, I guess, broad thoughts on that, and like ultimately how focused is Lens on trying to solve that key problem?
Um, so think about it though, how crazy that shit is. Like just opening your email up one day and just being like, oh, I have no longer have this handle that I've built up for like 10 or like 5 years.
There's no
Um,
consolation prize either. They're just like, yeah, we took this. Here are some alternative handles like music 333. Please reconsider. Thank you.
and then there's the people who like get suspended for reasons that they have no fucking idea why also,
That's the craziest one.
like, I mean, there's all types of things. And I think that it's, not a big problem for most people, but just it's a huge problem when it happens to someone though, right? It's crazy. But imagine just going to sleep at night knowing that that isn't going to happen, right?
Right.
That's a big value proposition, I think, to tons of people. Um, anyway, like, well, I think the technology just doesn't allow that. Like, there isn't a lot to say other than the platform is built in a way that just like $100 billion or whatever in Bitcoin that maybe some random person has, they own that, and literally no one else can do anything to that. And that person knows that if they die, if they go to sleep at night, like nothing's going to ever happen to that unless they give permission to someone. And that's how it is once you have your profile. And I think that's about it. The technology is there, and it basically just won't enable anyone to transfer unless you give them the right. And I think that's a very, very compelling, thing.
Yeah, but a related and potentially tricky question, how do you think about like handle squatting? Imagine someone's taken Kim Kardashian and then she wants to join. That'd be a massive boost in terms of bringing users over, but then, obviously you don't want to confiscate it. Do you try to facilitate a market for that? Like how do you balance the ownership piece with the fact that maybe this is a case of like impersonation or an opportunity for a brand or a business to join Lens and have something that is already part of their identity?
What we did to solve this initially, and again, like nothing is foolproof at all, was at least, anything that's trademarked is reserved. And we need to take a stance that, we, for now and until the protocol is fully, you know, permissionless, is that we will need to control who's able to mint that. But still, like things fall through the cracks all the time. And I think there's going to be more of a robust identity layer that revolves around the Lens ecosystem. So your handle will only have so much value as what's attached to it to identify you as that person. I mean, now I think it's pretty crazy that, on Twitter today, you can have like two Stani Kulachevs spelt slightly differently and they're both verified, right? And that's my signal. And they both just paid for the same, subscription fee to enable that. But with Web3 Social, you'll have a ton of other verifiers. So the value of the handle will be in so much as what's attached for it. But people do have, they want to get their own, their Twitter handle or their trademark name. And so we need to protect for that. But unfortunately, we can't do everything. And I think it's going to evolve very differently to the current state.
Makes sense. I think that's a super practical and smart decision to go that approach with the trademark perspective, right? Save a lot of headache down the line.
You guys got your handle, right?
We did.
Yes,
Yeah,
we did.
That was much appreciated.
Yeah, we're spinning up a lot of ship posts on Lens, just like we have been on Twitter. So, hopefully one day that'll become the main platform. I'm really hoping ultimately I think as a community move over there. And like for me, that's like kind of the key question. I think you guys have really identified something we all agree on, is that creators or CT specific, it would be shit posters, really are the value prop for a network. But it's very hard to penetrate kind of that network effect and get everyone to move over. So how do you guys think about that? Like after identifying the fact that creators are really the core value, how do you push over both creators and, really try to solve that chicken and egg problem?
I think it needs to be offering better solutions. I know that sounds generic, but the concept on Lens that you can actually monetize your content directly, and people are, tangibly able to see the benefits, is a huge value prop. I mean, we have a lot of musicians that are making, they're doing a post, and one has even made $3,000, by minting one track on Lens and that social distribution. And so I think it's going to be there's a monetization angle, which is huge, but also the data angle we think is incredibly powerful, because you now are able to have first-party data, whether you're a brand, whether you're a creator, and able to be smart in how you grow on social. And right now, a lot of the tools in Web 2 are dictated to you by the platforms and the data that you receive. But when everything's open, and provided there are experiences built on Lens that enable people in a simple way to see that data, to action on it. I think there's a lot of levers that we can pull just based on the tech, but we need to have these built into, clean UX that people can use and see that value immediately when they join.
Cool, that makes sense. So we have a question I think that might be pretty relevant coming in the comments here from Alex Murray, who is asking about owning handles, and he's asking if there's anything that can be done to expedite kind of the whitelist or claim process right now. Maybe this is an opportunity to potentially spill some alpha.
So we released for the first time a long-standing waitlist that I think was mentioned earlier. So if you go to like lens.xyz, let's see here. I'm just going to go ahead and pull up right now to get the domain. But anyway, if you go to lens.xyz, you'll see a big button that says claim handle. We just opened this up about 2 weeks ago, I believe. And we've received a lot of submissions, like in the hundreds of thousands. So obviously a lot of those people are real, but a lot of them are also bots, and a lot of them are whatever. So like, I think that what we're figuring out and finalizing right now is the most optimal solution for surfacing the high quality people that are on that. And then as we kind of continue polishing that, we're going to roll out more and more handles. So
Makes sense.
right now it's a little slow because we want to make sure that we're bringing in like real and high quality people. We've also enabled an invite system. So if you know someone that's already on Lens, then you can probably DM them to check their invites because they may have an invite
Oh,
and they can
okay.
just invite you. So if you
There's the
go
alpha.
to like, yeah, that's one thing you can do. And a lot of the apps are now supporting the invites directly natively. So I believe Linster and Orb are two that allow you to go ahead and send invites, or maybe it's Butterfly. Anyway, one of the mobile apps, or maybe both of them now. So from within the app, you can start inviting your friends, and then you'll, if you're continuing to use the apps, be an active Lens user, then you can get more and more like invites yourself. So we have the invite system rolled out. That's made it a lot easier for people to onboard. And then the whitelist is going to get better and better as we figure out better and better like filtering and Sybil resistance solutions there. So that's kind of my answer, I would say.
Yeah, and just to spill some more alpha, and this is where I see it going, but we want to reward those people that are bringing quality, referrals into the network. So being able to track that potentially down the road through the system. So encourage everyone to think about who they're bringing in. And also, those power users on Lens, rewarding them with more invites, more and more invites, definitely for sure also. So
Yeah,
IDEX,
that makes sense.
you guys better keep
Uh-oh.
posting more. We'll keep dropping. we'll keep dropping referrals to you.
Yeah, we do need to get more and more of our team members, and I think we've got myself, Pancakes, Reese, and a few others on there already. But I think we've got a whole army to bring on there at some point. Do you think at some point you'll potentially implement a system where if I'm like the 110,000th position in the wait list, is there anything I can do to bump my spot further?
Potentially, we've thought about that, but I can't spill too much.
Okay, all right, yeah, fair enough. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about monetization then, since we were chatting about that a little bit earlier. So with centralized platform like Twitter, we're seeing them start to, attempt to reward creators, although I don't know how well that's going. We've seen them open up subscriptions and ad revenue sharing, but I know Lens has a lot more opportunities and options for creators to monetize. Can you talk about that a little bit and kind of how you guys think through that?
Yeah, I think there's going to be a ton of ways that creators can monetize. And right now, the notion of being able to post and monetize as easily as a tweet is very, very valuable. And we've seen creators, they've made to date $400,000 doing this. I'm actually trying to run some more numbers around this, but it looks like that 15% of all Lens profiles have actually collected a paid piece of content. So
Wow.
understand, yeah, that is like, I think someone posted the other day, they're like, I've never made $14 on a tweet, right? And when you join Lens, you can do that, right? Provided your content is good. That's the hurdle. But if it resonates with people, there is the notion that people want to go and collect that piece of content. And also we've started seeing creators add utility behind that content too. So creating community groups in an application called Orb that are token gated based on historical paid collectibles. So that builds a flywheel definitely of, direct monetization. There's still going to be indirect monetization through ads down the road, I can imagine. I mean, I don't think that's going away. And like you said, We've seen Twitch and Twitter starting to give people a share and move towards something towards a 50% or more number, right, to try and become competitive and retain these creators for any ad spend that's been put behind their content. So that trend isn't going away, and I think on Web3 social it'll be even more interesting because you'll have more control as well. Like not everything needs to be priced the same way either, right? In terms of if someone wants to put ads behind your content. So having that control across your content supply chain and how your content is used, both who can collect it, but also who can monetize against it, is really going to, I think, shift the power and empower creators to have more ownership across the board.
Cool, that makes a lot of sense. So you mentioned a few front-facing apps since we've began the spaces. So for anyone unfamiliar with kind of the way Lens works as a protocol layer and how people can build on top of it, can you touch a little bit on that? And then from like a very honest perspective, I'm curious if you think at some point in the future there will be a bunch of apps that coexist, or will there be kind of one winner, front runner that's able to really capitalize on the handles that are being used on Lens?
Nader, do you want to take this one?
Yes, sorry, I was on mute. So there's a lot of stuff that I would have to say about this. That's kind of interesting. If you look at what is happening with Lens V2, we're actually releasing namespaces, which will allow apps and communities and companies and people or anyone really to kind of have their own type of, I would say like .eth or whatever that would be for themselves. And then they can kind of build out entire ecosystems around that. And there's going to be ways to monetize there. For applications themselves, we've found that even having a few tens of thousands of active users can generate like hundreds of thousands of dollars of revenue through that individual platform per year. So I don't think like each individual app needs to be a winner take all app to be successful. Like you don't need a billion users to like make money. In fact, all you need is like a few tens of thousands of users for your application to be profitable. So therefore, like we're going to see like varying degrees of I would say like winning in terms of like one app might have in the future 1 million users and another one might have 100,000, another one might have 10 million, and they're all going to be successful. But I don't think I think that because it's so simple to kind of like spin up an app, then you can build more niche apps for the types of people that want to hang out and be together and do stuff. And you don't need to go beyond that. So if I build a community of 100,000 people, we might not need to grow to be like 1 billion people because those are our people and it's profitable and everything is cool. So I think we're going to see like all types of things that are happening that I think we'll see a few apps that are kind of like ultimately the most used. But I think we're going to see, in addition, apps with less usage that are still considered successful. I think the problem with like VC culture right now is that people take investment and they're like then needing to become a unicorn. But when you're
Right,
bootstrapping
right.
an app on Lens, you just need one developer. Like we're seeing teams of like one developer build high quality apps and getting funding. And when you don't have anyone working for you, don't have any overhead, you're bootstrapped, then $1 million a year is like a lot of money. Like that, if you're making that, right? You don't need $1 billion a year, 10, 100 millions, whatever, a year, because $1 million a year is actually a shitload of money. Um, so I think that we're enabling that those sorts of applications and those sorts of things to happen.
I think what we could see as well is like a different culture around social apps because you're able to migrate so easily is we could see more viral apps that maybe have shorter shelf life and they know that,
Mm-hmm.
will go viral, but it's a team you stand behind, right? And that team is being able to build multiple viral apps and each of those apps, while they might not have long-standing staying power, there might be some sort of asset in that initial viral app that unlocks something in the next viral app. And so kind of, I think the notion around just like one app being the app that you use all the time might change and you might have more like fun and delightful experiences that are tied to one team. and build on one another, but kind of maybe really gamify social more.
Awesome. Yeah, no, those are great answers. So we spoke a little bit about creators and empowering them. I know we have Pancakes now in here who's running our socials, and we've started to slowly ramp up our activity and experiments on Lens. And I know there's probably a few other social media managers listening in. What kind of advice, if any, do you have for brands like IDEX to really succeed on Lens and kind of the associated applications?
The beauty of Lens right now is you're accessing a highly concentrated group of Web3 consumers. And so it's reducing a lot of the noise that you'll find on Twitter and other platforms in terms of targeting that cohort. I will say Lens is a community in itself at the moment. And so reintroducing yourself to the community in interesting ways using the collect module and playing around with that. It can be limited collects using the power of data to identify and reward those people that you can see on chain are contributing to your growth. So for example, on Lens, one of the really interesting things is everything's on chain, as I mentioned, so you can identify, who has been collecting my last 5 posts or who has been, mirroring, which shows a higher intent, just as high an intent, sorry, mirroring my posts and then is driving followers to IDEX. Like you can see all of that on chain, that attribution, and finding ways to reward those users and identify them. I think is a good approach, and just being playful and fun and really using the tech and the tools that aren't available, because everyone on Lens is an experimenter, the creators as well, and everyone likes trying and seeing new experiments and things, and it resonates very strongly with the community.
Cool, that makes a lot of sense. Nader, anything you want to add to that?
No, I think that Christina is, hit the nail on the head basically with everything.
Fantastic. So one thing that's been super interesting for me to watch, that's been making me pretty curious actually, is you seem to have had some substantial growth in Asia, and some pretty massive user adoption there, especially when compared to some other regions. Do you have any reasons behind your success there?
It's more so tied to the interest in Lens, and I think Web3 social in general. I think if you even look at TikTok back in the day, some of the first
Mm-hmm.
markets that really were important for our growth before the US were the Asia markets and the LATAM markets. I think when it comes to Web3 social, it's because these markets are already highly penetrated in Web3 in general, and so the concept of Web3 social makes is the light bulb clicks a lot sooner than, say, in the US, where we found that only recently, with these big tech founders, are people starting to talk about decentralized social. So I think it's a function of that. But again, these markets can be very, very valuable, but they also do need their specific Lens applications to solve for things such as translation, etc.
Got it. That makes sense. Well, those are all the questions from my end. Honestly, it was pretty eye-opening and insightful. I think not only did I learn a lot, but I'm sure everyone else here learned a lot as well. Is there any last kind of closing thoughts, any last little bits of alpha that you guys want to spill before we wrap up here?
I would just say that we have rolled out with Lens V2 that was announced about Stanny and in Paris, a lot of really, really important updates and improvements that a lot of people have been asking for. And so for instance, one of the big things that we now enable with namespaces is, for instance, ENS support. A lot of people got really excited to know that instead of needing a .lens handle, they can just use their .eth, and therefore not kind of fragmenting their, I would say, like online persona. So that was big. There's dozens of things that were in that announcement like that are going to be kind of rolled out and made more apparent, like as we ship V2 in the next few weeks or maybe in the next few months. I don't know the exact timeline for when that's going to go live. The smart contracts are there for people to look at, but we're rolling out testnet in the next couple of weeks, and then probably a month after that mainnet. But for instance, like we're supporting this idea of like an open action, meaning that you can talk to any smart contract from a Lens app in the world, meaning that you can mint on OpenSea or collect on OpenSea or talk to Zora or talk to like whatever, anything that's on chain can happen directly through Lens. So we're able to integrate basically all of Web3, and that's like going to just change, I think, how people think about Lens and how they build applications and how they integrate with Lens, because it's no longer like Lens is becoming more and more abstracted away as kind of like this infrastructure layer that just enables developers to more easily build things, as opposed to being like Lens is the front and center talking point. Like, this is a Lens app, or this is just an app that does all these things. And by the way, like Lens is an infrastructure piece that just made that way more simple for us to build.
And I think Ryan
But
Fox,
yeah,
who's here in the audience, said, Lens is like the social OS. And with
That's a good way to
V2,
put it.
yeah, it's such a good way to put it. With V2, that's going to be more and more apparent how we're the fabric, yet not everything needs to be in the Lens ecosystem, but everything will tie to the Lens ecosystem. So you'll still have choice on the different types of protocols you want to use, but Lens will speak to all of them and unlock the benefit of Lens. So being able to, I chat to a ton of musicians and they're particularly excited about V2 and being able to mint a song on Sound XYZ, but have someone natively collect it as a Lens post, or bake in the Lens referral fees. People are very excited about bringing Lens to the rest of the broader Web3 ecosystem in this way. And the other one that excites me a ton is co-ownership of profiles, because as we think about DAOs and media companies, being able to have multiple people that can post from one profile and can co-own and earn fees together, I think there's a big unlock there. And with Lens V2, you'll finally be able to do that. So, for example, you'll all be able to, Pancakes and Alex, you'll both be able to post from the IDEX Lens handle, right? And if you earn fees from posting content, you can give Pancakes maybe just a 5% share. He doesn't deserve that much. I'm joking. He deserves a ton. But yeah, so it's going to get very interesting when it comes to monetization and co-ownership of these profiles.
Wow. All right. That was a lot of alpha. I didn't expect that. So to sum it up, basically go to Lens XYZ, claim your handle. Once you have access, fuck around and find out as much as possible, because just like trading, you can experiment and become pretty early into what will probably become kind of the social OS like you guys have discussed, and the new frontier of hopefully both ship posting and alpha posting alike. As for IDEX, you guys know what I'm going to say. Make sure you're in Discord. We're getting closer and closer to the testnet every single day. We're really hoping to be able to open up the whitelist spots really, really soon. So just keep a close eye on that. Nader, Christina, Lens, thank you so much for joining. Alex, thank you as always for being here. And we'll catch you guys all next time.
Thank you, guys. This was great.
thanks for having
Thanks
us.
for having us. Gotcha. Bye.